All right, cool. We are streaming. All right. KJ, yeah, real quick. If you want to raise your hand, you'll be invited up to stage, and then you can ask questions directly using your microphone and your cam. Optional, totally up to you. Pure Q&A, no webinar. Just ask questions that you are interested in, and if you want to, you can share what you're working on and here's some feedback. Morvareed, please introduce
So,
yourself. Yeah.
hi everyone. Morvareed Salehpour. I'm a business and tech attorney. I work with small and mid-sized businesses and startups as outside general counsel, helping them with negotiating, drafting their contracts, data privacy issues, IP licensing, and M&A when they get to that point. Really focus on helping clients take a proactive approach and offering them high touch kind of legal counsel and strategy. So here today to just kind of share some educational items with people. I'm not going to just as a background, none of this is legal advice. I can't give you like specific advice on your situation, but I can talk about general kind of educational kind of concepts and questions just to educate people. So good to join you all.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, KJ, if you want to come up, you can either let me know in chat and I'll invite you up to the stage, or you can just raise your hand. Either way, your choice. You could also use the chat to post questions if you'd like, instead of using your mic. I'll give you just a moment to see. Sure. Okay, cool. Give me 1 second and I'll bring you on up. Okay, should have the invitation now.
All right, testing. Can you hear me or not?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. All right, yeah. Yeah. So thanks, guys. So my name is KJ. I'm in the software development space. I I All right. So my organization's a Windmill Code, and we do 4 things: software content, software distribution, software education, and then software consulting. So we build all sorts of apps, right? Web apps, mobile apps, browser extensions, even. Oh, my hands are still raised. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry now. I'm multitasking too. So and we also do video editing, right? So those are the 4 things you're doing. So right now I'm actually going over the project structure. So I think what was it? Oh, okay, I'm looking at the screen now. Oh yeah, and also I'm on a Linux computer, so Linux doesn't like my hardware. So I'm sorry, I have like a custom setup, right? As a techie guy, yeah, I'm a pretty techie guy, but I'm cool. But yeah, Linux, yeah, but my camera won't work. I'm still working on that. I just had it set up recently, so. But I am really looking forward to like the legal resources and the insight that you could give. I actually went to an event and I also met another lady who was an IP lawyer, right? And I'm meeting with her tomorrow to go over some of the projects I'm going to. So this will be a very good session for me.
Yeah, well, glad you can join us. If you're looking for just kind of general educational content, you can always, connect with me on LinkedIn or on YouTube. And I post a lot of educational videos, and YouTube has a lot of, my channel there has a lot of the kind of educational videos in one place. So if you're just kind of looking to kind of see some information about what kind of issues, founders and entrepreneurs should be looking out for, that's a good resource.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, put your YouTube in your chat. Put all your social media in your channel. I'll follow you. I'll make sure that my coworkers and I follow you. So I'm definitely looking for it. I'll definitely do that. I also watch Clint Coons and Carlton Dennis. You probably haven't heard of them, but
Have not. Yeah, I haven't heard of them. Well,
yeah. No, they just like people with like a really great voice like you have. You just like to listen to them. They come in and they really just break it down for you, and they're really you learn something that you wouldn't, like some channels, that the I don't even know the name, but the host, they're not too engaging. They're just doing it for the money. But
Mhm.
like guys like them, they definitely, they hit home with what they're trying to do, and they
Nice. Yeah, so is this your first business?
yeah, so Windmill Code, yeah, it's my first business. I've been going for a year.
Nice. And is it yourself? Do you have, other co-founders?
No, it's just me. That's a
Oh,
good
that's
lesson. Do not.
were you did you get cut off? It's kinda sound like you were in the middle of a sentence.
Oh, your YouTube started playing, so I think that was your YouTube. So yeah, subscribe.
Uh, well, that's exciting. I'm glad to hear you've started that journey. It's always a fun and exciting time. I myself was in a big corporate law firm and did that for many years before I launched my own law practice about 7 years ago now. So I kind of understand it. I understand where my clients or what my clients are going through at a very personal level and what entrepreneurs go through at a personal level, running my own business as well and having taken that leap. So I know how exciting and scary it can be.
Yeah, yeah. I think what it is just like, yeah, I was scared too. I think what it is that you just come to a point in. I think what has to happen for me, you just come to a point in your life where it's like, I just have to do the business. It's just like
Mhm.
there's like even in corporate, yeah, there's politics in corporate.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it's like, what, I could do it. And you just see it, and it's cool. What's cool is that you go on YouTube and you just see people doing it. It's like,
Mhm.
and like when you have a job, you're like, yeah, I want to do it, but that paycheck makes you relax. But once you're in a tough spot, and then you watch those people that they're making it, then you kind of tell yourself, yeah, let's do this. So
Yes, yes. It's always really, I mean, I've never met an entrepreneur or a founder who's regretted it, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think I try to listen to books such as like Brian Tracy, Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, I know you're yeah. So and then they just like that helps you along the way. Uh,
Mhm.
so
Well,
I think this is touching on some important um, factors, though, especially for first time founders, early stage founders. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of toxic nonsense that's being promoted to encourage founders to rush ahead and ultimately skip a lot of steps while taking on immense risk and making unnecessary sacrifices. So on this topic, Morvareed, I think it'd be really interesting to hear, yeah, some of some of your best practices to identify some of those common pitfalls that are being promoted online and how to better approach pursuing your ambition as an entrepreneur.
yeah, I think there's, some kind of, issues I see over and over. I think so, and there's so many. So, I'll give like let's start with a couple examples. So one that is very interesting is always businesses that are founders, I would say, because they're not even, I think it's hard to get a business if a founder doesn't want to go down this path. But uh, founders who are not prepared to invest in themselves or in their idea. So often there becomes a situation, and I've had even situation where multiple would-be founders have come to me, right, and said, "Oh, I want to do this X, Y, Z. I'm looking for funding," and I'll ask them the basic question like, "Have you already set up your entity, or are you looking to set that up?" And they'll tell me no, because they're looking for an investor to give them the money to set up their company, which is illogical, right? No investor is going to just kind of loan you the money on good faith so you can set up the company, right? They want equity. So it's businesses that are not prepared to invest themselves are the businesses I see fail, right? Because they haven't actually put skin in the game themselves. So I don't know how they expect anyone else to put a skin in the game. You need to have an entity established for anyone to invest in, right? Then you need to have proper documentation in place, and you need to be making sure you're operating properly. I'll use another example. Um, there was a situation where someone had spent about a year and a half, almost 2 years, in building out their business by investing in building out a prototype, a hardware and software prototype, by paying consultants. So time and money had been invested in this. And then they came to me and we were looking at their business model, and I analyzed it, and it was illegal. And all of this could have been avoided if they'd gone to an attorney earlier on, right? And just kind of provided their contemplated business model, had someone analyze and give feedback on it. So now they were in a position where they were basically having to reformulate the whole business, and also they had potential, some of the things they did had potential criminal liability established with it as well, that you're not going to be able to get rid of by shifting your business model. So given the kind of high, the higher cost involved with having to now restructure the whole business, they decided to shut down their business, right? So that's what kind of took them down, was a failure to really get the right plan for how to scale this business on day one. And now they were shutting down because no one was going to invest in a business that was operating under a legal business model, right? You can't get investors, you can't get acquired. That's kind of the end of that. So that's one common issue.
Yeah, real quick, KJ,
Yeah,
with what you're working on right now, how far along are you? What have you done thus far?
yeah. So I have a couple of clients. Yeah, I think yeah, there's many ways to answer it, but I'm going to answer it in terms of the client. So I have a couple clients reach out to me, and I got the statement of works. I had some preliminary conversations, right? So what I'm doing now is is research, right? Now that I have the statement of work, research and decide, hey, this is how I should organize the project, right? But so there's that. But then obviously there's also the legal part as well, right? Try to understand the client. I think the important thing, like, and work and put things in the contract that's going to protect me. That's going to be the most beneficial to me, and right, and even so, to the knowledge of the client. So one of the questions I asked the client is like, "Hey, have you done this before?" They said one client said yes, other clients said no. So I know that the client said no, right? I have to treat differently, and I'm gonna have to approach differently, right? And it might be harder to for me to try to get into a contract than a client who said yes, right? Because even when there's legal, right, there is also just the between the line stuff, right? The everyday relationships, right? And if they don't go well, right, things could get legal. So, right. So, does that answer your question or no? Not quite.
A little bit. We can keep expanding on this. So with your business, working with clients, you're going to use
Yeah.
contracts. What's your strategy to formulate that contract and utilize it? How are you doing that?
So for about the first year of my business, I've done a lot of internal work. But I have used other resources, right, to outline, all right, this is what needs to be in a contract. So I go to resources like YouTube, I go to other events, where I talk to I'm in Discord chats with other freelancers, and I ask them like, hey, what is your opinions, right? So what's your opinion on your project, and then what clauses that you want to put in your project, right, in order to kind of give yourself the maximum benefit. And I think one of the things is ownership, right? So the software, right? So our like plugins, right, are ours, right? But the determinant app for the client belongs to the client, right? So there's that. Also, another thing is scope of work and like changes to the scope, right? The client can ask for a limited scope, but one or two changes to the project, right? This is something that we allow for, right? So those are key things. Another thing is that if the client wants to cancel, right, then they can't just cancel right away, right? They have to give us like 30 days, or they're going to have to pay a cancellation fee. So that like if we're too early into the project, right, we kind of done all this R&D and we're not really going to get compensated for it, then right, that's another clause that you want to try to keep in there, right? So I'll be honest, I'm a bit rusty on it, but I feel that I know the right resources to go to, um, even now.
Morvareed, love to hear you chime in on this process that KJ is engaged in.
Sure. I think, if you don't have a, budget set towards legal, it's good in the, it's in the short term, it's what you're doing. But I do think that that agreement that you use with your customers, and it may take different terms based on what kind of business you are. So for like a services business like yourself, it's going to be a MSA and SOW. Like getting a well drafted attorney drafted template that for your use that's specific to your business is very important, because that is a document that a business uses over and over to generate revenue and to establish its liabilities. So it is a very important document to invest in. And every time I've ran into a situation where someone's tried to draft their own agreement, it's never been good. Right. It's always missing things. It always has logical like issues that don't make sense. So I think one thing to kind of prioritize as a services business, in one of the things to invest in earlier, rather than later, is the customer agreement. So having a well drafted customer agreement that you can use over and over.
What's the danger of crowdsourcing this information from people that are not lawyers on Discord or YouTube or other such sources?
Oh, this. So I can give a couple examples. So one example was someone who had done this, and payment was conditioned on some third party approval, and so their customers were actually using that to as a loophole to not pay them. So they were not getting paid because the terms of the contract actually required like some other party to approve the work product and a payment. So that was really creating issues for them. Another situation was a business who, uh, you know, didn't actually, so they thought they were protecting themselves because their whole thing was like, oh well, we as our legal, we're using this, our guy who used to do sales and business development at a big tech company. He's seen contracts, so he can do this. He's familiar with these. He used to see them all the time. The document was gibberish. It was like different versions of a confidentiality clause over and over, and did not address any of the key issues around, how, like the nuances around intellectual property ownership and liabilities and indemnities, and none of the things that actually come into play for their specific situation. So, yeah, I always feel like things are missing, and it's some people learn the hard way. Like they'll come to me and say, like, I just had a client who XYZ happened with, and now we're in a potential dispute. Like we don't want this to happen again. How do we fix that? And so we'll put a new agreement in place, because I always give clients the option of, we can try to save what you have been using, or we can try to draft a new thing. And I've never had a situation where it was more cost effective to try to save the document to just just to draft something that actually made sense. And every client has been like, "Yeah, do what you think is cost effective." So it's always more cost effective to just draft something and try to save those documents, because the documents are really, really rare. I've never seen a good one that a client has been using. So I think it's an important item for businesses to invest in.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when you're trying to clean up a mess, right? You crowdsource this information from other freelancers or other people that are in different roles, like you said. Maybe they're like your sales, they look at contracts all the time, but they're not a lawyer.
Mhm.
You, the lawyer that's coming in to clean up the mess, is forced to either, like you're saying, go through those existing documents and identify all the problems with it, and then
Hmm.
have to, like, rewrite everything to make it work, or you just start from scratch, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
you know exactly what you're doing from scratch because you're taking the time to contextualize the business, the person that you're working with, their strategies, their inner workings, operations, all that stuff, and you're just, from the ground up
Right.
versus, yeah, doing all that extra heavy lifting and everything. And I'm curious too, like, this plays into something that you touched on earlier with these messes continuously, needing to be cleaned up. And
Hmm.
as you're a little bit later stage in your business's life cycle, you go from being, a scrappy freelancer with 5, 10 clients to, a more established freelancer, maybe even, like, a budding agency with a couple, people working underneath you, and multiple big clients. All of a sudden the liability goes up immensely as well, right? And those
Yeah.
messes are a lot more expensive to clean up rather
Yeah.
than starting from scratch and doing it right the first time. So yeah, I'm curious too, like, what are some examples what you've, like, you've dealt with having to clean up some of those messes because someone was, much like, KJ a little bit later on, continuously trying to just crowdsource these things.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, in general, you can kind of also think about this whole situation as a game of telephone, right? Like we played that as kids and it may have started off, good, and then it goes through, you don't know how many iterations and it's something totally different at the end, right? So that's a good way to kind of think about what happens through that process of, I heard this from a friend or I got this from a friend. And there are, kind of lots of kind of situations that can come up from this. I've had multiple situations where uh, clients have come to me after unintentionally giving away their intellectual property. So that is, or not having rights to their intellectual property that they need to have. And that is particularly important for, particularly for businesses that are seeking funding, right? Investors are most interested in your IP. That's where the value lies. And if you have unintentionally uh, given it away or have unintentionally don't have rights to it, that's a key issue, right? And then other parties will use that as an opportunity to get more out of you, right? Like someone who is just a vendor you worked with may now try to claim rights to everything because you didn't have the right agreement in place. I mean, this even happens with like founder agreements, right? When you guys don't put, when there are co-founders and they don't put a good co-founder agreement in place and then there's a dispute, a lot of businesses fall apart right then, right? They never get to continue on and grow because they start arguing over the little there is and they don't have an agreement to resolve that dispute. And it's much harder to get people to come together and agree when they're fighting than when they're on the same page and everything is rosy, right? So it really leads to wasted time, resources, and hurts the company and its future.
What are your thoughts, KJ? I'm curious too. Have you tried to utilize AI for any of these sorts of issues with contracts or other sorts of legal matters? And yeah, Morvareed, your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, so I want to go back to what Morvid said earlier about self-funded. So we've done a lot of internal projects. We really haven't had clients, right? So now that we're having all these SOWs come in, right? Uh, I guess I'm glad like coming here, right? Because like even so, like I understand with business you have to be a shark, um, right? So there's that with AI. So like there you know, yeah, you can use AI to help you understand, but we haven't done a lot of contracts. We've just done a lot of internal work and partner with organizations, right, to do education, distribution, content. So, um, yeah, so not too much to comment on there, right? Not I don't have too much of a comment.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's kind of similar, right? Because it's just pulling from random stuff on the internet, and it is so it's kind of the same as a individual going and pulling from all these different websites and stuff and trying to come up with something. It's something pretty basic. It's going to have a lot of gaps. It's not going to really get you where you need to be with your kind of specific business. And so I think a lot of AI is still hard to use for sensitive areas like legal and finance and medical advice. Someone who knows what they're doing, like, for example, a doctor or a lawyer or a finance person would be able to tell if something is hallucinating or if something is wrong. But a layperson is not going to be able to tell, like, oh, there are issues with the output, or the output is not really good for my situation. So it's kind of similar to any other kind of agreement that's been pulled from the internet or from a friend.
This kind of plays into the value of context. The context kind of, is the key to everything in these situations. And even, if you want to apply that to business in general, or, whatever you're doing when you're strategizing, planning, evaluating data, information, designing products, all this stuff, context is so important to go deep, deep, deep into those layers that exist, there. And yeah, legal is one of the ones that is super important. Yeah, if you're crowdsourcing using AI, so much context is being either ignored, disregarded, or unaccounted for. So yeah, it's far more cost effective and strategic to just, yeah, save up some money, go find a lawyer. Um, I would also, like, yeah, love to hear your thoughts or suggestions for those that are a little bit financially limited, and they're scared to seek out a lawyer for help. What are some options for them?
Well, I think there has to be a budget. Like, if you're trying to grow a business, you have to be willing to put some budget towards legal, right? And you can decide what that budget is, but at least with that, you can work towards prioritizing. So that's what I kind of really help like early stage clients do, is like analyze their business. Like, what are you doing? What are your short term? What are your long term goals? How are you going to monetize then? So kind of helping them with the strategy around potential monetization as soon as possible. And then working with them to seeing, like, okay, what is really critical out of all, because there's going to be a whole host of legal issues, right, that you should be complying with ideally. But again, in the real world, you're not going to have the funds and to be able to address everything. So it's going to be important to kind of prioritize and decide what is the number one, like, key item we have to address now. What's number two, right? What can we come back to in a couple months when we're, having more revenue? So it's really working with clients to help them prioritize. And some I also am happy to help with clients if they want to try to take a laboring or from some of it themselves, right? Where they maybe want some feedback or more limited assistance to me, and then want to try to do it themselves to like reduce costs at least initially. I'd rather them kind of do that with some feedback and guidance than try to do it with in like a black hole, right? So I'm kind of as involved as a client wants me, but I'm kind of there as a resource and happy to provide guidance and help prioritize what needs to be done for them.
For someone like KJ or other uh, uh, potential clients, what's the best way for them to prep and assemble documentation before sitting down with a lawyer to really maximize the use of time and save money as well? So your time's not being wasted doing a lot of back and forth and uh, extraneous research on their behalf.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of be engaged in the process. So one of the things I like to do once, a client has engaged me, and is get on a call with them, really have like a detailed discussion about what their product is, often because one of the first things I do for a client is help with that customer agreement, right? So I really want to understand their product or service. I want to understand how they are monetizing, anticipating monetizing, how they're using data, to ensure we're addressing all the data rights and data compliance issues. And so clients should be, it's really helpful when they're prepared to talk about their product, right? That they actually understand what their technology does. Sometimes it's, non-tech founders, they should get their techie people on the phone, or if they can't get those people, at least be familiar to, talk to me about what it is they're doing. The more information that a founder has around what they're doing and what their goals are, the easier it is for me to like help them and direct them, right? It's when there's and I will say, there's still a lot of issues that a founder may not have thought of. But I mean, that's quite common. Like I'll get on a call with a um, client and we'll be talking about their business, and I'll, be starting to analyze and thinking of all the kind of potential concerns and be like, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And they'll be like, no. So it's like I iterate a lot with my clients as they're structuring their products. It's like, how do we actually structure and iterate your product so it limits your liabilities and you can monetize it easier? So, being open to doing that with someone and being kind of open to listening, right? And kind of being proactive in how you're approaching on this. I think that is a way to kind of streamline your legal, because it's a lot more cost effective to do that kind of upfront than to make a mess and then try to clean it up later.
KJ, um, kind of, again, following that thread, what's your monetization strategy? Because you said you are developing like libraries and you're going to be licensing some of that in addition to doing, I'm assuming, labor work to build stuff out, utilizing, your libraries. But yeah, what's that business model look like for you that you're trying to utilize?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So definitely to the core foundation of the business, right? Content, um, consulting, right? Distribution and education, right? So definitely, right? You leveraging social media once we create products and put them out there, right? Some organizations they have Facebook, um, Instagram, and Twitter, but any platform you come across, right? And then what I'll do is I'll put our organization's link tree in the chat. Any platform that we come across, we create a social media account there, right? We just know that by more awareness and putting our content out there more, right, that increases the opportunity to find new connections, right? So there's that. Also, with the software distribution, right, um, attend plenty of events, right, and even buy a booth and present at some conferences. Like specifically, we want to try to go to conferences and right try to make this strategic partnerships with one of the larger companies, right? So this is the same for so that would be on our distribution stack, and then same for education and then consulting as well, right? Attending a lot of events and conferences to make the connections with the right resources, right? And then from there, right, examine the potential opportunities that we have and choose the best route for our business that we could handle at this time.
So you touched on a couple different things there. You talked about some marketing strategy and biz dev strategies to, raise awareness to your brand and create sales funnels, right? But I'm curious, what specifically are you monetizing? What are you actually selling? Like specifically, when you say education, are you selling courses, or are you utilizing content and educational content to again create brand awareness and sales funnels to sell other services, other products?
Yeah, that's correct. Right. So on our content, on our content, social media, right. One of the things we like to do is one of the things we used to do is like courses, but now we've done a lot of more shorts, right? Try to promote some of the products and then try to give people insights on daily tips and tech, right? So in addition, because we also have products that we've done a lot of internal work. We also have products that we've developed in our organization that is just not for only software developers, but it's for the everyday person to use. For example, we built an app called Enablea, which is for content creators, right? So using software content to have people gain awareness of our organization and the products that we have, right? That is that is a business plan that we have.
Sounds like there's a lot going on. And
Yep.
one of the issues that I often like, this is part of the product kind of service iteration process I go through with clients, is kind of going through this and and kind of deciding, because the more items you're kind of going down, the more legal issues and legal compliance costs that are involved. It's kind of like narrowing down, okay, what should we really launch with now, taking into account like the whole picture of like potential monetization, potential legal costs and compliance, like other kind of issues, and that way kind of coming up with a more streamlined strategy for launch. And because yeah, I think sometimes founders get lost by kind of wanting to do everything at the same time, and that can kind of lead to less success.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not founders. We're consultants, right? So we don't have necessarily a startup to build up the product per se. We're more agency, right, that provides solutions to to customers. So I just want to wait. We're
Well,
doing it.
I kind of see everyone as a founder if you're kind of running your own business, right? So I'm not
Okay.
talking about it like just, like a fund, someone who's looking for investment, like any type of business. They're in general, like any entrepreneurs, founders, anyone who's like starting a business, whether it's self-funded or looking for investment funding, it's if the more things you're going to do, the more different things, the more compliance issues are going to be involved, the more legal issues are going to be involved. And so it raises the cost of compliance and makes it more difficult, both on the legal side and I think on the business side as well, because all of a sudden you're having to like market and think critically about lots of different kind of products and services. So one of the things we always kind of I work on with clients is like, okay, like what are you kind of trying to do? What do what do you want to like really pursue first? And so we can kind of narrow it down to something that makes sense that they can actually have some success with. And then we can add in more things as we're starting to see revenue, right? Like as you're starting to bring in revenue, you can add in more monetization strategy and actually have more funds available to, pay for the legal, to pay for the marketing and business development, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, and to kind of build on this idea of focus. The more focused you are, the more you can effectively and efficiently utilize your resources to make progress. And the more things you're trying to do at one time, the more types of people you're trying to appeal to, the more you're diluting everything. And it makes it harder to make progress, but it also makes it harder to learn as you go because there's too many things all, you know, fighting for your attention and getting convoluted in regards to, okay, who should be focused on? What's the result of this test? What are we learning from this? How can we apply this to iterate and move towards product market fit and all these other elements? And it's just going to make it so much harder for you to get anything done and really, start to build traction for a billion different reasons. And I'm looking at the link tree that you posted and also listening to what you're saying in regards to consultants versus apps versus founder versus all these different elements. And it's very hard to understand very specifically what it is that you are trying to accomplish, what your business is offering to people, why that's enjoyable, who specifically that's for, how that's benefiting them, where the value of that is. And it's making things confusing because it's so broad and it's there's too many different things going on. And so when you get more focus on the specifics, it also makes it easier for you to communicate and hone in on very specific people that are going to get the most out of what you're offering and be most excited and allow you again to learn the most from them, get the most relevant feedback and move towards again product market fit and having a real strong client base. And I'm also curious too, when you say consultant, you guys are consulting, but you're acting as contractors. It sounds like because you're building things, you're building products and and software. And I think too, this Morvareed, you can you know, share your insights. How important is it to make those distinctions between consultant, contractor, freelancer, employee, something else, right? Advisor, mentor, like these different things have very specific meanings. And I think like legally too, like it's important to use the appropriate language.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's different IP implications based on what your relationship is with the customer or client, right? And different like liabilities as well. And also, I mean, I'm not sure, how um, your guys' business is structured, but in general, right? Like there are liability protections that come in from having entities, right? So there are a lot of services businesses there, right? A lot of consultants who are, it's consulting businesses, right? They're services businesses that provide consultancy, that provide other types of services, but they're set up as a business, right? For that protection that kind of comes with having a entity. And regardless, even if you decide, for example, someone as an individual decides to, maybe they're just starting out. And I've had clients who've done this, right? Maybe they're doing it as a side business while they're still employed. Maybe they're just initially kind of doing some freelancing. So they kind of don't formalize a new entity initially. They just kind of decide to do their own consultancy or servicing agreement. So we'll still prepare the agreement because the agreement is still important in terms of establishing rights and IP and all of that. You just don't have that additional protection of entity until you set up the entity, right? And the entity can just be yourself if you're a sole consultant, sole contractor, right? So that's that. And consultant and contractor are kind of the same thing, right? It's just someone who's kind of is not an employee who's working with a business. And if it's an entity, they can still be a consultant. You can also call those type of businesses vendors, contractors, subcontractors. It's service provider, right? There's all these different terms for them, but that's ultimately it's a vendor relationship. Or you are in an employee relationship, right? Where you are an employee of a business, whether part-time or full-time. A lot of times when you are an employee, you're prohibited from working for other businesses, particularly in the same line of business. So there's complexities about what else you may be able to do outside of your free time, whether what the employer owns a lot of IP that the employee makes. Specifically, it's in the same line of business, even if they're doing it outside of work hours, right? So there's all these complexities about IP and ownership. And, sometimes employees get in trouble because they create a product that competes with the employer and then they try to like leave and do that as their own business, but they really can't because they don't own it. So it creates its own complexities.
No, yeah, it's good to be aware of for sure. KJ, if you had to focus on just one thing to generate revenue, to monetize, to make money as a business and pay your income, what would be that main thing, that top priority?
Consulting.
Okay.
Okay, and when you say consultant, how would you define that role? What exactly are you doing as a consultant?
Right. So as Morvareed specified earlier, right? We're essentially going to be a contractor, right? She specified consulting, it's contracting, essentially the same thing, right? We're going to come into the business of the client, right, and then build, right, the needs of the client.
So I would make a distinction between consultant and contractor, even though a consultant's still contracting with a business and getting paid on a contract basis. The role that a consultant's typically playing isn't to go in and build stuff. They're more in an advisory role, evaluating the business or certain aspects of the business, and providing strategies and plans for the business to enact on their own, and for them to build out solutions and such, based on your insights and your feedback. And a contractor, a freelance contractor, is more what I'm hearing is what you're looking to do, where a business is hiring you on a contract basis to come in and build code for them. Yes.
Yeah, and then I also want to indicate, right, it's important in that situation, it's important to have an LLC. We have our LLC, right? I definitely, I even spoke with a client that they didn't have a business yet. They wanted to build an app and they wanted to come to investors, right? So, right, correct the statement that you gave, and I also wanted to right kind of elaborate on that too. That even in both situations, right, it's important to be formally um, incorporated, and that's what we are. So,
Yeah, that's good to hear, right? That entity is important. And also I think the focus is really like whatever you want to, whatever they call the agreement, ultimately it's the services at issue that are going to be important. So, if it's like a software development company you're creating, right, you're going to want an agreement that's really focused on software development services. um because that's why, again, it goes back to like having a cut in place like consultant agreement or services agreement isn't going to really fit your situation, because your situation is software development that has its own kind of nuances, and it also depends on what kind of software development you do. Like, I work with a lot of tech services clients, and some do like certain types of software development, some do like certain types of AI like development. So it really depends on what your specific offer, like what kind of services you're actually offering. And some clients have different types of software development they do. So it gets nuanced.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. AI, especially if AI, right, there's much more. Right, AI is different from other types of software development because it's an indeterminate solution that the said contractor is providing. Right, AI is not always reliable. Even you mentioned earlier using AI to kind of help with drafting out contracts. I think even one lawyer last year when for AI when ChatGPT first came out used it in a court case and to find out that it was all made up and it cost the lawyer, right? So I definitely understand the importance.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, they made up cases and quotes and they got sanctioned. That is right.
So,
So
oh yeah, go.
I was just going to ask KJ, because you were saying that it's just your self, or because then you said we. So is there other people you're like collaborating with?
Yeah, I work with a few other people. Yep.
Okay, nice, very nice. All
What,
right, well,
what
I guess that founder agreement will be important too.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
Oh,
ask about. Is what's that relationship like, in regards to that working relationship? How what's your role in relation to their role, and if you have an LLC in place, who's on that LLC?
right. So I'm on that LLC. I'm the only one, sole owner, right, of that LLC. Right. I don't believe in partnerships, right, because it's one thing to have legal liability with the client, but it's another thing to have legal liability with the partner. Like, I've gone to some legal seminars, right? You have situations where the partner has a divorce with their hasn't having a divorce, and now legal and attorneys are trying to come after the business, right? There's some agreements where ownership is not the someone may owe 60 or 40, right? So they have more control, or there might be agreements where certain things can't get done in terms of reorganization of the business until everybody agrees, right? So until everybody agrees. So if you have like a partnership with more than like two people, right? And X amount of people want to get something done, but there's one person that doesn't want to go ahead and have something taken care of, right? There's that also just outright scams, right? So um, my relationship. I'm the owner of the business, and then the people that I work with. It's more essentially of a contract type of relationship, right? When there is work, I reach out to them. I say, hey, we have a project here. Let's get together and try to complete it. And as many resources that I need to get done, right? Say for example, we're working on our software. If we have the resources to keep my team, then I keep my team. Otherwise, I'm mostly doing it by myself, right? So that's how So that's the relationship.
Morvareed, I'd love to hear
Yeah,
your thoughts on the
I
implications legally with working with these other contractors under KJ.
I think just in general, any business that is bringing on people to like work with, right? Again, agreements are always key. And then, in situations like this, it's important to talk to local employment counsel, because there are certain situations where if a contractor that is someone, if you're trying to onboard someone as a contractor to do the exact same thing your business does, they're not allowed to be a contractor and need to be an employee. Like that's under California, like for example, right? California laws require that. So it's important to talk to a local employment attorney, particularly where you're onboarding contractors, to ensure you're in compliance with employment laws.
Right. So I think that based out of where we are, we've spoken to an employee law lawyer, right? So we're not based in California, but we definitely did speak to. I definitely spoke to an employment lawyer about bringing people on, right? And maybe not necessarily about contracts because there's not a whole lot, right? The I'm funding the business out of my own pocket, um, but when bringing people on, I definitely try to run things through lawyers, even when I had to have taxes done, right? And to have their taxes forms done, right? I definitely paid, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just right. I definitely paid my tax accountant. I definitely have my tax accountant involved with this, so I definitely reached out. So definitely when it comes to working with others, right? And then I think one proponent of our organization is that, right, in we definitely want to try to give back to community and also help those in the community. So I know that mostly in software tech roles, right, there's required of a degree, required of experience. So at Windmill Code, that's one of the things I do here. Definitely, if someone is talented enough, right, to be able to perform, right, the work that needs to be done, right, there shouldn't be license. It shouldn't really go based on whether they had the financial opportunity to get a degree or get that experience, right? And for our contractors, like the people I work with, right, that's their first experience, and I show them, and then I definitely give them the experience that they need, right, to take their careers to the next level, right? So definitely, even though on contracts I agree with you that legal support's needed, I definitely, when it comes to people, right, I think that's first and foremost one of the facets of our business, and we make sure that we kind of do things accordingly in that case.
Yeah, I think you just need to, make sure you talk to a local attorney to get the right documentation in place so that, you are actually able to comply with all, applicable like employment laws, and that you actually have the intellectual property you need.
Yeah, no, we definitely, yeah, no, I definitely, that's one of the things I'm definitely like every week I try to review, right? Every week I try to get review. Even so, like I want to mention, right? So there is housing, and then yeah. So even so, I think one things that I try to do personally, right, is like I try to read about different housing law cases. So I kind of go on like justia.com. I think these legal databases, right, and I say, what, since I'm reading about them, I always want to make shorts about them as well too. So I kind of started a channel on worker safety, right, and in relation to employment. Yeah, so definitely, even on my own time, that's some of the things I try to read on.
Morvareed, what liability might there be for giving advice or making statements in regards to possible legal information related to teams and employment and such?
I'm not sure. Oh, you're saying if I'm not sure what you're asking.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, like if KJ's saying that, they're KJ, if you're posting about, employment law or how to treat employees and such, like, you know,
Yeah, no, that's a
like
different. That's something I do personal, like outside of the business.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
so
you mean even in a personal context, like depending on who those people are and how you're approaching them and all that, like, like Morvareed, should KJ be aware of where a line may be
Uh,
between.
I Yeah, I mean, in general, I think anyone should be aware. Like non lawyers should not be trying to give legal advice. That's the unauthorized practice of law, which is a crime. So it also has liability, but there's also criminal liability tied with that. So yeah, I mean, always you don't want like non lawyers, non doctors, non trained, non licensed professionals kind of giving advice on sensitive topics. So there's strict laws around all of that.
Yeah, so just for your awareness, KJ, run these sorts of topics by a proper lawyer. If you are, like, going out in the community and sharing some specific advice, or at least learn, from a lawyer how to properly frame what your statements are going to be, so everyone knows it's pure opinion, it's nothing legal. Do not take your advice as legal advice and all that.
Are you saying that I'm going into the community and giving legal advice? Is that where? But
No,
I think
yeah, I'm saying that it's important to make sure you're not, right, to be aware that you're not before you do it, on accident, not intentional, not malicious or anything like that, but just, take the time to sit down and understand, how to frame these things so it isn't taken in that manner.
Oh, okay. So even if I make a short about a case, not telling someone, "Hey, this is what you could do. This you could do that." Right. Um. Right. Because when I make the short, it's just like, okay, hey, this is what happened in this case. So and so um did this. The employer did that. Right. And these are the monetary damages. Right. So would that constitute as advice, or would or is that still fine? I,
I mean, we can't get into like specifics and analyze like a specific situation for you, but I think, if there's any, like, if you feel there's questions, you should consult with an attorney in your jurisdiction.
Yeah, because it goes back to what we were talking about before and what Morvry was pointing out. It there's so much nuance and context that is going to be at the root of this, that it's important to sit down and review these things. And the other thing that I think is important, Morvry, you can speak to this too, is when Morvry says in your district, it's because law, it's tied to territory, whether that's the city, the county, the state, the country, or international law. So there's a lot of different elements that are going to be at play. And again, this goes back to crowdsourcing this information or using AI, where a lot of this isn't being accounted for. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's exactly a lot of laws are jurisdiction specific. There's certain things that are kind of federal, that, for example, intellectual property is a federal level law. So, you can work with an attorney located anywhere for like intellectual property, software issues. But once you're getting into like nuanced things like employment or on the practice of law and things like that, those are all kind of state specific. So you're going to want someone local to your jurisdiction.
Right on. Okay, we're up on time. KJ, if you have any last questions, now's the time. Got anything?
I think this is insightful. Definitely looking to as you kind of grow our business here, definitely looking to keep in touch with you guys, try to keep us getting on the right track. As you kind of mentioned earlier, you had one client that their business model was illegal, right, and they had to shut down their business,
Yeah.
right. So obviously, um, more important than ever, right. Try to get in contact, with our local lawyers, right? Get in contact with as many legal resources so that we could kind of get on the right track and that story doesn't happen to us. So definitely want to kind of do the right thing. We definitely want to as we kind of work with these clients, we definitely want to make sure that we're in the right space legally, right?
Mhm.
And everything to do that. And I think this talk helped a lot, and looking forward to making those changes immediately. So thank you.
That's wonderful. That's great to
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I'm glad you took part in this, KJ, and yeah, thank you for the questions and yeah, fun discussion too. Morvareed, you're awesome. Thank you so much for participating and being a part of this. Do you have any final things to share, to promote? I know you have a couple fun hikes that you do. Yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Thanks for having me as always. Glad to join you guys and nice to, meet you, KJ. As always, I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn or any of my other social media platforms. I also lead alumni hikes for UCLA alumni, and it's a great, it's always good turnout and a great opportunity for people to come together and network in the great outdoors. We do have a hike coming up on 11/24, right before Thanksgiving, the weekend before. So if you're local in LA and want to join, please feel free to reach out to me. We will also have a hike coming up in the December 15 for the holidays. I think the link just went up today on the alumni website for registration. And we are encouraging holiday wear. So, holiday colors, ugly holiday sweaters. So if you're an alumni and interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me as well, and I'll get you the registration link.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan of ugly sweaters.
I think
Yeah. Yeah, and anyone else that's watching on any of the other socials that we're streaming on and you want to connect, feel free to reach out to us, 805surfs.com. I will be happy to pass along any information that you would like about Morvareed or any of the upcoming events. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. Morvareed, again, thank you so much for helping us support the community.
Of course, of course. Well,
Cool.
it's great joining you all.
Okay, with that, have a great day, everyone. Get back to work, but
Bye.
remember balance. Later.